This is not easy, but I do think it's necessary. So let's briefly consider Romans 13. How do we read Romans 13 then? If you just read that at face value, you would say, well, God has established the government and they're doing their thing. And so would it be surprising to you to know that Romans 13 has been quoted many times in history? And at some of the worst moments, American slavery, Southern theologians demanded enslaved people submit, because God says so. Colonial conquest, this nation, our original sin. Indigenous people were told that resistance is rebellion against God. Nazi Germany, the church with the swastikas on the pulpits said submission to Hitler. He is the authority. Romans 13. Apartheid, South Africa, the Dutch Reformed Christian Church defended apartheid with Romans 13. Civil rights used against Martin Luther King and the protests. Romans 13. What are you doing? All of these things were the law. And people said, you have to obey the law. And if you don't, it will be enforced by those in authority. This is what God says. Did you know it was also Christians in every one of those movements who pushed back and said, I don't think you're reading that the right way? Abolition was a deeply Christian movement. Wilberforce, Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Charles Finney. The Underground Railroad was run through black churches many times, saying, we don't think Romans 13 means this. Nazi Germany, the Barmen Declaration, 1934, Karl Barth, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was executed for this stance on Romans 13. Civil rights, almost entirely church-rooted. And yes, everybody has flaws, for sure. Martin Luther King had them, I have them, but he was a pastor. And I've read him, and it was organized and talked about of, here's what we think God would say about people. So how do we do this, though? How do we know when it is? And I know many of you would say, I don't agree that this is that moment, that what's happening out there is something to stand up for. And that is fair. You can definitely be there. But one of the things I would say, if we're going to use Romans 13, we need to use Romans 12 as well, which says we're on the altar and we are blessing enemies.